Yeah, so we would like to talk primarily focused on this very essential topic, how to develop beginners or intermediate KI practice on one's own. The idea is that, I mean, two things here. One thing is that this method is ultimately designed that we are working on ourselves by ourselves. Yeah, and this is totally possible. However, at the beginning, it is quite important and very necessary to work with someone to get a hang of it. Yeah. So the more we work with someone, like we work in a session, then we get a hang of it, and then we start to practice on our own. And so, yeah, so we want to talk about, like, from the very beginning, what would be some useful tips and how to go about it. Yeah. Well, one thing is that even before starting with inquiry, like reverse inquiry or any particular type of stirring, just to develop this sense of being aware of our inner body. Yeah. So being more aware of what's happening in the inner body. Some people said yesterday, this area from the throat to the belt. Here we usually tend to have emotions, the frontal line, sensations, contractions, chest, belly, throat, gut, although of course some may be in the back. But somehow to train oneself throughout the day, as well as in a meditation practice, to check what's there, as opposed to just being in a head in daydreaming and shut down, just to observe stirring throughout the day. Notice what's happening there. And also to, when we go about the day and we notice a stirring, to kind of check, see what's there, and maybe put a name on it. You know, it sometimes helps to be like, oh, I'm angry, or I'm afraid, I'm not sure. So some of these emotions may be more clear, and it helps you to just notice and put a name on it. So we start to have this basic emotional literacy. However, often this is not clear what we are feeling. So what's happening. However, we notice some stirring, some energies, so we can use this VI, vulnerability inquiry. Whenever something's happening, you can not go into the story, notice, check your body, and we can do this. I'm not afraid, or I'm not angry, I'm not sad, I'm not ashamed. So we do each one of them. We do it a few times, and we check what's happening, and then it will tell us, yeah, what it is. So we start to do this beginner's way of becoming more aware of these energetic emotions, and then we make conscious both the felt sense as well as this thought. There's like, oh, I am sad, or I am afraid, or I am hurt.
Did you say there was no need to go into the story? You can just bypass that and just go right into the emotion?
No, I was saying that we don't know what's happening. There's some stirring in the body. I know it's about the neighbor or something. And the tendency for most people is to not be aware of the body and to take them to mental court, to have this, oh, how can they do this, not right, this or that. Yeah, so it's more like to pause that for a bit. There is time for investigate the story, and more like become more aware and check what's in the body and notice what emotion. Yeah, what emotion is that? Yeah, we can just,
yeah,
anything.
Well, we might switch around a little bit, because I want to talk about some big picture things, like just being with this work for a while. But I think about, like, when we're kids, we're depending on people totally, like for our emotional, well-being and not so well-being. So like we have been conditioned so much to depend on other people for their approval, for, to get love and all this, that we really, really don't know ourselves. So it feels like with this work, we really have to make self-practice the key and break the codependency of trauma eventually. But we can't do it in the beginning because we are already dependent on others. We cannot trust our own experience yet. So it doesn't really make sense to say, just do the practice on your own only. Well, because you have to work up to it. You know, you might not feel safe or skillful enough or even trustful enough to do it on your own. But if you make that the goal here, you're going to be better off. And the sooner you make it the goal, the sooner you're going to be better off. Because it's all about trauma and healing and taking ownership of our experience and trusting our experience. So how do you do that if you keep going back to the therapist or the facilitator all the time? And that's bad for our business, I'll tell you, it is. But it doesn't matter because I've been a teacher for 15 years and I've seen the codependency. It's thick. And the teachers play into it, you know, because we make a living and we might be getting something else from it. So I'm ready to break those bonds and help people. And I'm just telling you, the only way to do it is you got to stand on your own 2 feet. My job is to help you. Our job is to help you become as skillful as possible, to be there when you need us, to support you and make you. But I've not seen anybody come out of repression who relies on other people. Just tell you that. I've not seen one person. And there's not a lot of people yet coming fully out of repression because it's a new path, but I just don't see how it would happen. The people that are making the greatest strides or the deepest are people who stand on their own 2 feet. They have a regular daily practice. They're waking up and they're embodying, you know, like they're not just standing in their own 2 feet in their practice, it's in their relationship with regard to their health. So modeling a self practice it models how we live when we heal trauma. We're trusting our own experience, our own emotions. We're not easily gaslit by other people or manipulated. We have to do that ourselves. Like we have to, in order to stand on our own 2 feet in our relationship, we just have to do it in practice. But until then, you know, I had Dan, and I didn't do, no, Dan did not, I want to be clear, Dan didn't facilitate me every day. No, I facilitated myself every day. But then just like you guys, I would find some issue and it's just like fog out, chronic pain, something that would just bamboozle me. So I'd have to go to Dan. So I think that's the purpose of having somebody else there is you want to watch any pattern where you just lean on somebody too much. I'll just tell you that. Because there could be all sorts of things going on in that. There could be a trauma bond going on. But use somebody in like a healthier way. Like, you know, like when I can't stand on my own 2 feet, I need to come over here and you need to reflect back something that I can't see. And then, but the whole point of the session is to get me to stand on my own 2 feet again and try to become skillful and trust my own experience. It's not to, you know, and that's why I tell my facilitators, you don't want to just do this process with people and not explain to them what you're doing, because that's disempowering, very disempowering. So that's my first speech, is like the bigger picture. And then if you can understand that, the rest is easy, because now you know why we do it, right? Now, and the rest is just a matter of how you do it. You know, how do you have a regular practice? I'll just say this, because I mean, I can go into a lot of details on that. The way that I did it was to sit down and do a standalone practice each day, which means like, sometimes it was like a lot during the day, frankly, but at least a sitting, at very least, at like 30 minutes to an hour a day, at the very least. But then I got really good at seeing how different forms of suffering were the repression. So in the end, I think you kind of have to bring it into what we call an inside out path, which means if I'm stressed at work because of the repression, I got to bring the inquiry to it. If not, I'm just managing safety. Basically, I'm just managing a nervous system that I'm unconscious to. Shadows, I have to bring the repression. I can't expect the shadows to go away if I don't do shadow work. So, you know, there's my suffering. I got to bring the inquiry to that. I got to bring it to the pain. That's what a practice ends up looking like when it's really skillful. And it takes a while to get there, is where you learn how to do the inquiry on all forms of suffering. That's where the deepest healing happened for me. I won't say too much about skills, because I feel like we've talked about that this weekend. I mean, I'll answer questions. To me, it's more important to understand what it is we're really doing here. And I think once you have a really solid understanding of what we're doing, the practice just starts to take care of itself.
Now, if you got to that place, you have a serious understanding about why we need to do it, then you know, I know these people, they're like, they don't know what to do next. So I think it's helpful to, what I try to help people is for them to find out what are their deficiency stories. Yeah, to find out. And whenever you find a deficiency story, write it down so we don't have to discover it over and over. So you identify your core deficiency stories. I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, 2 or 3, yeah? So write them down. Why? Because actually we can, so it's a skillful beginner's practice is to start with your deficiency story that you wrote down, and then you bring up your family of origin, mommy and daddy, and just simply reverse that deficiency story. Yeah, reverse it. I am lovable. I am good enough. Now this will stir more stuff. It's going to stir more stuff, so we can witness whatever comes, all the memories, the objections, the emotions, the best you can. So, but you already have a deficiency story, 1 or 2, then stay with that, staying focused with that, and using reverse inquiry to keep loosening up and seeing what's there. Yeah, so reverse inquiry on deficiency story, utility inquiry. What do I get out of believing? So utility, I'm not going to go into detail now, but just utility inquiry on deficiency story. Yeah. And then also discovering whenever you are triggered, this is very important for KI, to be very interested in our triggers. Yeah, so we're very, to be very curious about our triggers, and whenever we are triggered in a way that we get pissed or in a way that we freeze or collapsed, to either in the moment or later at home, bring up that memory of the trigger and use the boomerang. The boomerang is this method that, what does this mean about me? Okay. What old story of mine, what core identities evoked in me by these situations? Scott was saying at some point that for some time, yeah, he would give this exercise to use the boomerang in your back pocket every day for a few weeks. Whenever you are triggered, find out what's underneath that. Because on top, it appears as if I'm triggered because he's an asshole, or because the economy is bad, or because this, but actually, you know, I'm triggered underneath. What does it mean? Oh, I have to be in a certain way. I can't be myself. Yeah, so identifying each time and making conscious the deficiency story underneath your trigger and just seeing that. You can do that in the moment, or you can do it afterwards, like an autopsy. Let's say, okay, you already lost it, you got identified, but then you can do it later. You still make benefit by bringing the situation later.
You stole one of mine. But I'll say just a little bit more about it. The boomerang, yeah. So I think, you know, if you're having trouble like sitting down and actually practicing and doing inquiry on your own, that's a pretty simple, easy way to start bringing just a little bit more consciousness into your daily life, right? Because we're all getting triggered kind of all the time, from really, really subtle stuff to really big stuff, right? From they cut me off in traffic to like he left me or something like that, right? So always like using that. Our triggers are alarm clocks, right? Every time there's a trigger, it's showing us there's something deeper, there's something more unconscious in there, because people can cut us off in traffic and like there doesn't have to be that reaction. It can just be like, oh, they cut me off in traffic, that doesn't feel good, that makes me feel like not considered. Okay, I see that. Or there's a whole huge angry reaction because I'm repressed and I don't know my unconscious stories. So using every little trigger as an alarm clock to go, oh wait, let me look and see what's unconscious here. What does that actually mean about me? What's the message I'm getting about myself? Right. And so that's just like the first doorway in. And I'll tell you, in the beginning of KI, that's all I was doing for a while. Yeah. Like before I started doing training with Scott and I was just working with a facilitator, I was just boomeranging everything all the time. And it changed my life. So start with that. And then when I did start training with Scott and he got on me more about self-facilitation, I think for the first couple of weeks I was working with you, the only inquiry I was doing was I can do KI on my own. And this revealed to me, do you remember this? Yeah. Do you still do this with trainees?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can do KI on my own. And it will show, there's one inquiry can show you so much of what I'm avoiding, yeah, what I'm resisting to not do it on my own. Yeah. So starting there and starting small, like he said, he'll do 30 minutes to an hour. But if you can even just get yourself to sit down for 5 fucking minutes, that's a win, right? Even, and if you have no practice whatsoever, can I get myself to sit down and just be silent for 5 minutes, right? Like that's going to override programming. If you're a doer, and I can't sit still, okay, let me challenge myself to sit. And if I can't sit, there's an inquiry there, right? So no matter which way you go, there's something to look at.
Okay, so I have a couple more little practice points. I want to talk about like there's 2 big areas I noticed in the work. Like these are big picture ideas. So people come in, you start off, we don't know we're angry or we're hurt, it's repressed. So there's a milestone or a mile marker that happens. It's not a concrete time, but it's like when you recognize that you're angry, you have repression, you just know it, and you're kind of coming out of denial of it. Like you just, and that's a necessary step here. So it's hard because if you guys notice what happened this weekend is like, we have a bunch of anger and hurt repressors here. And the anger repressors will go to anger last, and the hurt repressors will go to hurt last. So at some point in the path, you go there first. You start going there first. See the difference? Because the bypass is going there last. The healing is to go there first. So that's a switch. That's a milestone. At some point, instead of going to identities and stuff, you're essentially going to funnel down to, even if you do look at identities and other things, of course, there's more to look at, but you're going to always funnel down to the core, which is anger repressors. Essentially, I'm angry. And I'm afraid to be angry. And there's another milestone later. So you have to come out of repression, which doesn't mean you have to clear all the repression in your body, but you have to, like when you're getting triggered, you have to know that that's anger to go to the next stage. Okay. If you're still denying it, if like you get triggered and you're like, I don't think that's anger, and you're not checking, you can't get to the next stage. I hate to say that there are stages, there really are. This is an embodiment path.
I like it.
Yeah.
That stage.
Yeah. Some people don't like that, right? Okay, here's the next stage. It's the really the healing, the really deep healing. But I feel like you have to get to a different place where it's not just that you know that you're angry and afraid or sad and afraid, is that you have to. You have had to be this way all your life, and you don't even want to let go of it, frankly. And that's where it starts to really move things, because you're taking total ownership of everything. It's like you're no longer bearing the anger. Not only you're not only not bearing it, but when it comes up, you're fully making it conscious. And you also see that you don't want to let go of it. And that's why you buried it your whole life. And you don't want to let go of the sadness. However, you can still transmute that. You have to raise your skill level. So that's when we do the net. When we get kind of where the net kind of represents that late stage KI work. But what starts that, or what's also involved in that, is backdoor. Because backdoor is the sabotage. So backdoor is programming in us, which you didn't do a lot of this weekend, which is when the repression is right there, there's programming that says, I don't want to let go of it. So it's like I have to hold on to it. I don't want to let go of it. You're going to, as you do KI, you're going to increasingly move more and more towards backdoor, because the backdoor really is the sabotage, the repression. It's like, I have to hold on to this. See that? I have to. I'm afraid I have to hold on to this. So as you start making that conscious, that I have to hold on to it and I have to be angry, it's a different stage, the path. And you start to realize, oh, I'm actually really creating all of my suffering. Like there's an insight there that can come where you actually see that your responses are being created from the repression. And as you start to make it conscious, the suffering starts just going away everywhere. When you finally take ownership of it. So the path in some ways is just like one big fight against ownership, of our repression. You'll notice that it's just one big long fight. But at the end, when we take ownership, there's deep, deep healing.
Going back to just really basic stuff for somebody new, to learn the trifecta. These are three basic stuff upon which everything is built. So learning reverse inquiry, utility inquiry, and mining. This is like there's something in my body or something is there, and then try to look into it more. What does it say about me? Or if this were to have a little voice, this thing, what would it say? Or if it were to, be heard, what would it say? So this is kind of starting to unpack the somatic experience, yeah? So mining, utility inquiry, reverse inquiry, and the boomerang. These are like, that's where we start with these. Then as we get more, we go a little bit more advanced, we start meeting emotions. So this vulnerability inquiry or VI, what I said, I'm not angry. So reverse inquiry with emotion. These are meant to help us unpack our emotional body, become more aware of it. And in this way, we are less just disconnected, disjointed, running away from it. Yeah, so we meet this. And this also can be done, like, I remember I'll be driving and something's happening. I'm not sure what it is. I'm like driving. I'm not sad. Sad, you know? And then the next thing is like to work with resistance. We may be feeling stuff, but also we don't want to feel it. Basically, we are struggling with this all throughout the path. We feel something, either a sensation or a contraction or an emotion or a state, and our system doesn't want to feel it. So a good way, we have some so-called first door or resistant inquiries, like I'm feeling something, I'm afraid, and then right away throw this in. It's okay to feel this. I'm willing to allow this. Yeah, so this is targeting, there might be secret, hidden repression or suppression, fear of it. Yeah, so we need to make this conscious. So because not just to feel it, but yeah, we need to make conscious the resistance to feeling. That's why often we're like,
Yeah, I don't think I'm in the middle of thought.
what?
Yeah, in the middle of thought.
I kind of lost it. So if you have something,
Okay.
go ahead.
Mining is, I have a caveat with that, and mind body mirroring. They're great tools and everybody should learn them. They really are great tools. And I think they're really good to like practice. Like, for example, mining is when you go, what does this energy mean about me? And then you witness and allow. Okay. And mind body mirroring is you do the same thing, but you rapid fire it. Well, the thing that all of everything he said is correct. However, but mining and mind body mirroring, in my view, can be a bypass if you lean too heavily on those, because you're basically relying on what is. And so when we know now that what is what's safe. So if you just keep going with what happens to arise, then you miss what's unsafe and buried into bypass. So I would say use the mining and the mind body mirroring in with all the tools, because I've seen some people pick up mining because it's safer. They don't understand that that's why they like it. They're not conscious of that. And they pick up mind body mirroring and they're like, this is a great tool. I'm like, of course you do, because it's safe. And so I have to tell them, and they don't like to hear that because it's unsafe to go to the anger. But if you hear it in the beginning, you just won't get caught there. You won't just start doing only mining or only mind body mirroring. The other thing is, though, mining is great and mind body mirroring is great to get the two markers if you don't otherwise have them. Like, it's best to get the two markers through the repression work. Like by saying, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. And then like the transmuting happens and all that. That's probably ideal. But sometimes it doesn't happen that way. And we stir stuff up and we don't have time to finish and we stop. So it's nice if you have time to just do some mining or mind body mirroring at the end. Just to kind of level things out, like, because you've stirred stuff up. Remember how I was saying with these inquiries, you stir stuff up, but that doesn't mean you're conscious of everything you stirred up. So you've stirred up things, but they're not conscious. You might feel energy, but it doesn't mean that you see what you've stirred up. So when you go, what does this mean about me? You start to see what you stirred up. something that they've got that is right there. And then by making that conscious, it just quiets the disturbance in that. And you keep doing it. That's why it's a bypass, by the way. See, it's just too safe, but it's good at the end of a repression inquiry. Keeps you safe though. It makes you feel grounded more. And so you just get away from repression inquiry when you're not seeing the two markers, is what I'm saying. Just stay away from it and come get your skill higher, and then just use minding to regulate, or some other nervous system regulation technique to ground you. I've really learned how important it is for people to be grounded in their life when they're working in KI as much as possible. Yeah.
Another thing is what we've done yesterday to find out pretty early on what emotions were most repressed in my life, in my family of origin. Find out why from the eyes of the child, and discover your commands. So these are really like some handles on some big files. As we start getting to this the emotional, deeper, serious, liberating work, we need to know what repression we have and what the commands are. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to kind of comment on what you were saying about the minding and the mind-body mirroring, and how much that really depends on where you're at in this process. Because there's definitely people that are just starting out to even create a mind-body connection. They're not even really kind of probably ready to do deeper vertical repression work.
Yeah.
And that at first just feeling into the body and letting it speak is actually such a profound way to start dipping into the unconscious, right? Because the body is the source of all of the unconscious programming. The body produces that. So like,
It's good practice.
it's really good practice, right? To create that mind-body connection and see what's going on. But once you've kind of heard what the body's saying and you've identified those kind of core programs or core deficiency stories, I think that's where you're saying you could get caught in a bypass to keep going back there, right?
Yeah, I'm not guessing. I've seen this.
But to like, I feel, and I'm open to your feedback, but to just skip over that altogether and not develop that skill would be.
Would not be good. You don't do that.
Yeah.
So let me be clear. I think what I'm saying is, because you can definitely use those things like she's saying to develop. See, because it's safer to do mind-body mirroring than repression rapid fire. See, with mind-body mirroring, you're working with material that's safer. So it's a nice practice. It's just, you don't have to deal with dad's rage with mind-body mirroring, or really any emotion. You're just, basically what comes up in mind-body mirroring are non-emotive concepts, non-emotional concepts, like I'm not good enough. And so it's like keeping you safe. See that? Or like dad doesn't love me. Yeah, because that's safer than the anger or the hurt or the fear. So if you actually pay attention to minding, you can actually see the safety in it. So I really want you guys to take that seriously. I'm not just saying this, I'm telling you, because I've mapped all this out and what creates a bypass and what doesn't. You would use it to get started. You would use it to flex the muscle of rapid fire. You would use it to regulate your system throughout KI, but you wouldn't use it as the main tool for repression work in either one of those.
It would be good to also develop, have somebody that you're comfortable with that is also doing this work. So to have some kind of partner or some working with peers, something you can share. I mean, these are all the relational wounds. It's hard to kind of solve them by yourself in the closet. Although that's very important to do inquiry in the closet by yourself, but have a meaningful friendship, friendship with someone in the work.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
So just motivates you too, right? Even if you're not doing inquiry together, just somebody you can share, right? Like after I have a deep process, it feels so good to share that and talk about it with somebody and just feel like you're not alone, right? That you're doing it together and there's people to connect with over it. And if you don't have that, come to the members area. There's lots of people.
You need it for when you come out of repression to have people around you who kind of understand what you're going through. It's actually, there's no suffering in it, but it's a very different thing to be coming out of repression in a world where everybody's in repression. And you want to be connected to people where you can be authentic with them. You want real relationships. And if you're only bonding with people who are in trauma, it's challenging. I'll tell you, you trust me, you'll want that as you get clearer. So start those relationships now. Yeah. With people.
What happens to the ego when you come out of repression?
That's a good question. What is the ego? I think if you call the ego the suffering goes away, because that's the root of suffering. So when you say the ego is the deficiency story, that's only there because it keeps you safe from the repression. It does the shadows go away because they're keeping us safe from the repression. The chronic pain got healed because that was the repression. To the extent that that's all ego, that's what happens. It's transmuted. Something's transmuted around it.
Are you able to meet other people that are suffering without feeling like you're somehow further along than them and creating this hierarchy?
Yeah, but the thing is like it doesn't work because it's just a landing. So if you're trusting your body, you can't land there. It's like, what do I get out of believing I'm further along or I'm behind? Well, that just means I don't want to feel anger again. See, that's all that means. So I just feel the anger, and then it's like there's nowhere to hang. You can't hang your hat on any of that. It's all unprocessed emotion, the identities.
So I suppose more compassionate response than judgment.
Right. I think more compassion, more love, but it isn't a false love. It's not a false peace. It's all well-rounded. You're a full spectrum human, more and more you're full spectrum. In other words, you're not in repression.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's like happening with me or my ego is that it's more obvious. Like I see it more, like I see it working, even if there's a pattern playing out or there's just more distance from it. There's something that's way more aware that there's a pattern playing out, right?
Yeah.
That the gap, right, of like the trigger.
Concerning yourself.
Huh?
You see it in others or you see it in yourself?
I'm just talking about my experience right now. I'm sure that is what's happening for others. I'm quite sure, but I'm just speaking from my experience. So yeah, one thing we haven't talked about is like the gap. I don't know if you still talk about the gap.
Yeah.
So like narrowing this gap between like a trigger or a judgment or a projection or some sort of upset, and like the amount of time it takes to acknowledge that is even happening, and that also that I'm the source of that happening, right? That I'm in
process.
To process, exactly. To be like, oh, there's something going on here and I should look at it, right? And so that for me, that gap is like so narrow now. It's like almost immediately. And then the even the processing of it goes really quickly, like we were talking last night. Like you can just move through it and move on.
Yeah.
I
wish I could articulate, but I can a little bit. Like chronic pain is something we're holding on to. Triggers we hold on. Shadows we hold on to. Our suffering we hold on to. But here, there's increasingly nothing to hold on to. So it's freedom, because we're holding on to those things because we are trying to stay safe and not feel. So we really start to, this is a non-dual path. It's a very, very friendly path. And that's why you don't land on the identities, by the way, because it's non-dual. Like you're seeing that you're not that, but not because you just see it as a thought coming and going. It's not that because it goes away.
It's not that.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, it's not there. It takes some practice to get to that.
And the gap is the time between the trigger and processing, not the trigger and then realizing that you're identifying.
Right. It's processing from the time of but it's good to catch it. It's one thing is just to see it.
Like if you see it, like I've been doing that when it's not
It's not.
working. I'm like, I'll process that later and then not.
That's it. Yeah. Right.
And also, Scott, isn't it true that the gap also refers to when we're firing to try to keep a steady flow of the command going and not stop and start, and also not constantly change the command?
I don't call it the gap, but that's true.
Oh, okay. I thought that was also a gap. Okay.
Well, what helped me understand the rapid fire piece is that, again, pain is chronic. We always feel deficient our whole life. So the repression is ongoing and continuous trauma response. So it doesn't take a break. It's not like off on Saturdays or between 6 or 7. It's like constantly. I'm constantly deficient. And then unconsciously, I'm constantly avoiding emotion, constantly, in order to be this false self. So, you have to kind of understand that. Then when you pull it up, it's not a story, not a story. It's not a thought. It's a mechanism that's going like this. So the rapid fire that mimics the mechanism moves the energy more than just witnessing or just resting as quietness, because then you're totally unconscious to it and awareness. You're just sitting here, Does all that make sense right there, Wes?
Yes.
I just remember one of the things you guys mentioned earlier was like recording yourself and as a way to self-practice. I did that for a while and it was really helpful for me.
The work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't do it as much anymore, but when I'm starting to kind of just space out, I'll turn on my phone, I'll record, and then I'll like talk to it, and it keeps me in it longer.
Nice.
Well, something I want to say is that, as you probably have seen and felt it, this repression work is like swimming in hurricane, swimming in big, big waves. We're trying to swim or surf in big, big waves. So it's important to learn how to swim in the swimming pool. So that's why it's important to have a regular meditation or mindfulness practice. This will be like swimming in the swimming pool. However, the attitude towards the meditation is different, So we may want to meditate because to feel better or to escape this discomfort or to meditate to attain something. That will be problematic. Or meditate to if you meditate well, somehow there's some discomfort that by just meditating with it, it will go away, but it doesn't really go away. It goes back under, So from one angle, it furthers kind of repression in some way. However, what I'm saying is that to have a meditation practice, which includes the body, and it's the understanding is I'm doing this because I'm really curious what's here, and I'm interested to develop my ability to witness. I want to witness thoughts rather than be stuck and churning in thoughts. I want to witness and allow and feel emotions rather than push them down. So meditation, not to reach enlightenment, not to feel better, not to get rid of shit, but to develop the chops of witnessing. And in this way, it's not going to work. If there's no experience meditation, there's no interest in meditation all day, every day, we are like lost in thoughts and identify with every feeling. Now you're coming to KI, stirring the most dangerous white sharks. And so this is going to be bad. Yeah.
But I feel like everybody pretty much has this sort of practice. Right?
I know my clients don't have
No,
that.
they don't.
So few people do that. So
That is true.
yeah.
Okay.
And
I
it's
know.
not just about meditating, right? It's about understanding. So this whole first dimension, I don't know, we didn't talk much about the maps or the map or the dimensions this weekend, but we do have this first dimension, second dimension, third dimension in KI, whereas the first dimension is just what Mihai is talking about, right? So meditation and awareness practice, but that really, like the essential piece of that is understanding what I really am, that what is coming up isn't what I am, that I have freedom to be identified with what's arising or not, right? And that doesn't come just by sitting in a chair. That helps, right? That's like precursor to even that. It's like, okay, can I just sit here and be quiet and just tell this monkey mind to shut the fuck up? But the piece of understanding, I think, is really essential, because you can sit on a cushion and meditate for 30 years and never really have an understanding of who you actually are, And so if what I'm saying is like confusing to you, there's just like a plethora of resources on YouTube these days of where you can listen to pretty intelligent teachers who probably also bypass, but they can talk about this, right, in a way that will help you with understanding.
Well, I just have to thank you guys for, I cannot tell you how much, I have been on this path, trying meditation, yoga. I've been doing it all for years, and I feel like I just check out. It's just really helped me actually suppress more, repress. It's
really?
just literally
Yeah.
I feel like And so it's just, it makes so much sense to me
Good.
that, yeah, the whole intention is so important to know how it all works.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like otherwise you can just try and be with everything or just sit there and it's like, you're never getting to like,
Yeah,
and it's so frustrating. That actually is so frustrating. because
yes,
You still, then your story just continues to spin
Yeah.
even deeper.
right. Can I say one thing then? So there's a whole context around this KI. There's a way of understanding what we're doing, and it's pretty, mature. And I want everybody to learn it, because if you don't, then your default takes over. See what I mean? Your system is already running the path. So I never thought that this was a good idea as a teacher, and I warned against it because I was bypassing basically. I just thought we could just pick up inquiry or meditation and just radically be with what is and get free. And then I bypassed and it didn't work. So I've learned now that if this context, which you've learned a lot of it this weekend, all the stuff we're talking about is the context. And what it does is it guides us in practice every day. It guides us. It tells us what's going on, and it tells us where to go. And that might be something new to you. You might be the kind of person that just picks up a practice and does it. I would say be different here. Just learn the context and understand what we're doing. And then I think that it'll help the practice a lot, actually.
Are there resources to support what we've done here this weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of, that's what I want to say, so there is, this is called Kiloby members area, which is connected to Kiloby's website. It's just kiloby.com, and then it says join members area. That is like a platform where there are people who are interested in this work, who are doing the work, and we communicate with each other. It's almost like a KI Facebook style, but it's focused on KI. And where also there's a platform where we have, like Scott is putting videos that are slightly different than the ones that are on YouTube for everybody. They're more technical, more for actual people who are actually doing the work. So there's guidance there. There are other facilitators like Caitlin and myself and many others that are having meetings, regular meetings there, as well as there are people in KI who are teaching meditation in a way that doesn't bypass and actually strengthens your ability to feel. So there's a lot of this thing. The members area is like a monthly membership, which is very little. And in that by that monthly membership, you get all of this. If like here's a few meetings, I have some meetings, other people have meetings live, is teaching, they're sharing. One other thing, there's a spectrum between, like there's a range. Okay, I do KI with a facilitator, so somebody's facilitating me, yeah, and then here is I do KI by myself, yeah, and so they are somewhere in between. They're like coming to a meeting, a KI meeting, then there's like group guidance, yeah, it's a little bit better than being completely on your own. At the beginning, it's hard to know what you're doing on your own, completely on your own. At the beginning, it's hard to be both the facilitator and the facilitatee, and you don't know what to do when something big comes up. So somewhere here, we have in the members area, and I can totally make it available even by email today when I send this, like a guided. There are some of people in the KI, they have some guided psychosomatic processing. I know Alina has some, other people. I have like about 100 plus of guided KI stuff. I start with meditation, but then I stir shit up. I bring this and I use KI to guide it. That will be good at the beginning, so you're not totally on your own, but yet it's free, it's there, so that's a good way to learn more. I have a playlist of 100 plus guided KI processes.
Your website.
That's on YouTube, right?
On my YouTube, on my website. I can just put it in the email with this recording. I put it there and said, so if you don't know what to do,
I like it too.
you can
but
go and
sometimes
play it.
I
And,
don't feel like-
and it's all using this KI. There's also some KI, I'm doing some groups, but also there is a KI group here locally. Some people do
Somebody
KI.
from in town?
What groups are you
Most
doing?
of us. What's that?
What groups are you doing?
it's well, I mean, I'm doing I mean, I've done a bunch of modules focused on KI and beginning of teaching how to meditate in a way that doesn't repress, and teaching how to mine and reverse inquiry. So I do like a beginning, intermediate kind of group KI.
He's
Although
not doing one right now.
I'm not doing
He'll
one
do it
right now.
periodically throughout the year.
Yeah, Caitlin is doing something here. Yeah, so that's a lot
You know.
actually of resources and a lot of free resources.
I have a clarification on something I said. Because we need other people in the beginning. I'm very aware of that. In fact, we might need more guides here more than in other places because we're trying to correct a bypass. So I think the way to do it, because I've definitely seen people come in who try to do it on their own and they don't get the context, or they don't build their skill, and then they just sabotage it. So there's definitely, in the beginning, you really do lean on people, the members area at the meetings, maybe even training or mentorship. Like if you're really serious and you love the work, we're mentoring people. I'm also training people to be facilitators, but that you have to go through a little bit now to get to that. But mentorship is open to anybody. So that's part of it. It's like you're on the training wheels, right? And we're guiding you the whole way and showing you. But then when you're working on your own and you're consistently seeing 2 markers, and you have a regular practice, at that point we can't help you more than you can help yourself, basically. I mean, you could come back to us for refinements, but when you're skillful, and the 2 markers will tell you that, when you're skillful, you'll feel it, you'll know it, and then you can take the training wheels off, of course, and then like you're on your own. In the beginning, I kind of oversold that a little bit. We do need some help in the beginning, obviously. Okay, ready to go. Is it time?
Yeah.
Somebody's looking at like they're tired.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.